Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tea with TPS, an informal conversation with thought leaders in India and abroad. Today, our distinguished guest is Mr. K. Kunhikrishnan, former Additional Director General of Doordarshan, and a writer and contributor, a translator, and many things else. He has been a witness, not only a witness, but also an architect of television in India in the last 50 years. He still follows developments in the media and writes about it regularly in contemporary magazines. He continues to observe the changes and also contributes to the thinking about the media. He's also very much a part of the intellectual and cultural life of Kerala. Welcome, Mr. Kunhikrishnan.
Thank you, TPS. Nice to meet you after 2 years, at least virtually.
Well, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, as I was saying, that you are not only a witness to the TV revolution in India, but also an architect of it. So, in your own lifetime, in about 50 years, the changes have been so much in television, not only in India, but also all around the world. It's now beyond recognition of what you started with. So, could you tell us some essential features of the technological aspect of the TV evolution in India?
Oh, definitely. Most grateful for that question because I've been a part and parcel of the growth of television in India and also the good fortune to visit a good number of television channels, networks in some major countries of the world. I joined television in the 70s, late 70s, and then it was monochrome, just black and white. Also,
But that started in 72 or 77. 77 was the color.
77 it was black and white. 1982 only the color television came to India.
Okay.
So the transmission was terrestrial. That is, you upload the signal to a tall tower, and then the signals are captured by what you call antenna, helical antenna, and then they reach the drawing room. And it used to be a great thing to be in television those days because television numbers in sets was very few. Very few. Were very few.
I know there's only one channel, so everybody sees you if you are on television.
Yeah, everybody is glued to the television. Way back in 1970, when I started my career in some other government department in Delhi, I used to visit the house of a very close friend of mine, Mr. Ravi Verma, who was then a very famous writer in Malayalam on agriculture. I think he is one of the pioneers on that field. He used to live in an adjacent building where I was staying. That's a Gerson Road hostel in Delhi. He had been on a mission to visit to training or some visit to Malaysia, and he brought a TV set. Oh, what a thrill it was to go and watch.
All the neighbors would assemble. I remember those days, though I was not in India.
Yeah, very good. This one. I mean, I would get very nostalgic. I used to see Pratima Puri, the first announcer in Doordarshan, in the whole of television in India. Then there was also Salma Sultan.
How would Ramu Damodaran, our own friend?
Ramu Damodaran came much later. In fact, these two, actually, when television started in 1959, it was a 1 hour, it was only a half an hour business. There were just 41 sets. Television was started with abandoned equipment. There was this India International Trade Fair those days. I think Philips, I'm not very sure about it. Some company left over some. They had CCTV at the exhibition. Then our engineers started an experiment with it. And then on September 15, 1959, television came to Delhi. there were just 21 sets. Then the number of sets went up to 41. Then there were community sets. And it was only 1965 that Delhi started a 1 hour transmission. And it was going on slowly. 67, we had Krishi Darshan, one of the longest running agricultural programs in television anywhere in the world. And it is still running. And then.
What year did you join Doordarshan?
No,
Which
I
year?
hadn't joined. It was only a miracle somewhere else. So only in 1977, I joined Calcutta Doordarshan. They had a 2 hour program. And
27 was important. That was the first time that there was a non-Congress government in India.
that's true. I was just going to say that a little later as we move on with the conversation. Calcutta, it was in an old ramshackle film studio in Tollygunge, Radha Studios. It was a major film production center. So that was converted into a studio, 2 hours of transmission. There were some English programs, something, and a very illustrious and very well-informed lady by name Meera Mazumdar was my first director. She was so very considerate, a great human being. She was trained in BBC London for television. So, and also her.
But why was it in Calcutta and not Delhi?
Not Delhi. It was Calcutta. Her brother was in the Indian Foreign Service, and her another brother was in Planning Commission. So, Mazumdar, I forget the full name. But after 6 months of Calcutta, it was a great life in Calcutta because people were so nice. And then what you call, probably you must be knowing about SIU inspection norms.
Mm-hmm.
They said one post of assistant station director was not really necessary. Supernumerary. I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was transferred to Chennai. Chennai was, of course, a much better place because there was a regular building team and also a well-planned studio, which had come up in 1975. Calcutta, a similar setup came only much later, I think 1980. And in Chennai, it was black and white, 2.5 hours of transmission. It is located in Chepauk, near the university.
What was the reach at that time? Chennai means where would it reach? Would it reach all of
80 kilometers around. Even if you travel to the university building in Chennai, over from the Mount Road, Chepauk, near the Chepauk Stadium, you can still see the towers. It was one of the tallest towers in South India. The idea being
the Calcutta one had the reach of about 80 kilometers around Calcutta, and similarly in Chennai.
Yeah, because
and nothing in Delhi. There was something.
The television signal operates on the principle of the curvature of the earth. So we say that a straight line is up to 80 kilometers. By fluke, it may go up to 120. In Madras, we used to get letters from people who were staying around 120 kilometers away. The quality of signals was maybe not top grade, but still. But people were glued to television, and it was bliss to be in television.
But radio was still very popular at that time.
Yeah, very, very popular.
And did many of those legendary broadcasters and radio, did they shift to television?
Yes, quite a lot.
And
Quite a lot of them came from All India Radio, Chennai, quite a number of announcers. There was a major problem with regard to pure television because people who came from radio, it happened in Delhi also, thought that putting pictures on sound is good television, which it was not. But people were sent to Pune Film Institute and trained. Those days, it was only film which was used for television broadcasting. People used to go out and shoot on 16 mm positive film for matching the sound They used to be recorded on what we call Magra tapes and bring it to the studio. Then
So it had to be dubbed. The pictures had to be dubbed in with the language later, is it? Like a movie.
no, it is recorded. It is
Yeah.
just like film editing. The sound has to be on a tape, just like film. Film has its perforations on
Right.
both sides.
Mm.
And in this particular case also, the set mag, as it is called, magnetic tape, there used to be perforations.
So no tapes, no tapes yet.
Yes. In television, in film, uh, per second, it's all a conglomeration of still images. Those still images run fast, and in 1 second, in film, you have 24 frames. But in television, on a television camera, you have 25 frames. So that's one basic difference. Anyway, coming to that, after that, it continued to be so till about 1980. No, not even 80, yes, 80, 81. Then we had this video cameras, what we then called Portapa cameras, in which I had also gone to Pune for basic television production training for about 6 months in the Pune Film Institute.
What was at that time known as VHS? Is that VHS, Beta, etc.?
Yes, VHS came in the early 80s. Very expensive equipment where you get used to get films. After that, this video equipment came. Video equipment was half an inch tape, and then programs used to be recorded in studios. There used to be very heavy cameras. I'm not going into the technicalities. They used to be dollied by helpers. Cameramen just could not push the camera. Then the studios were to be lighted. And then the best television came only from recordings in the studios. But 1982, a revolutionary change, spectacular change happened in television.
That is Mrs. Gandhi. That was Mrs. Gandhi, right?
No, that was 1984. This was in
Mrs. Gandhi
1982.
was back in power in 1980.
1980, yeah, she was information and broadcasting minister for.
Yes. So at that time, I remember
Yeah.
people said, let us first cover the whole of India with black and white, then we will go to color. And apparently, she insisted that that is the wrong way to go.
Yeah,
Go color now. And that turned out to be a very good decision. This is what I hear.
absolutely true, because everybody was against color television.
Yeah.
In 1982, Mrs. Gandhi decided, one, it was a question of India's prestige, because 1982, November 19th, her birthday, onwards, for 15 days, we had the Asian Games participated by 39 countries. And out of the 39, India and Vietnam were the only two countries who were operating in black and white television. So it was then decided that we will have also color. Then people were sent to Germany, BBC, and all that for training to operate color television. And it also happened that in 1982, the first series of communication satellites, Indian national satellite called INSAT, was
And
orbiting.
it was with Soviet Union collaboration, was it?
No, it was
Indigenous.
purely indigenous Indian satellite.
But I remember when I was in Moscow those days, Mr. Vidyacharan Shukla came there to get a renewal of a contract for one of these satellites. That's why I remember it.
That was for, Doordarshan used to record news from all over the world. It must be one of those contracts. We also used to download from what is called Intelsat, International Satellite Chain, a CRAN series in Moscow, then some European satellites. But no, this INSAT 1 was the major step. And through INSAT 1, we could upload the signals to the satellite and then download it. And then it was decided that during Asian Games, all the states in India should have low power transmitters. That is, the uploaded signals would be downloaded and distributed through terrestrial transmitters of low power. So they were that would cover 15 kilometers around. And then they used to say we used to get 15 kilometers covered. The first step in color television was Mrs. Gandhi's address at the ramparts of Red Fort on the Independence Day. And then that day onwards, all the 4 metropolitan cities of India were also linked by what is called a national network. That the time between 8, 8 to 10 would be taken over by Delhi for national programs. It had its own advantages, it had its own disadvantages because major uh, regional stations like Bombay, Chennai, Calcutta, which had very active and vibrant theatre. Dramas used to be the staple food for television anywhere, but they were all taken over by Delhi.
And at
19
that time, were we able to watch BBC or CNN was just started? International channels could we receive here?
international channels came only in 1992, not in 82. After this national network came into being, everybody, each of these low power transmitters, which were engaged for transmission of Asian Games, they used to relay Delhi program. So an incongruous situation arose because people in south, down south, couldn't understand Hindi, and there was also resistance. But then the government then decided, let us first reach out geographically. After that, we will see the situation. So geographically, almost every day, Mr. S.S. Gill, Secretary Information and Broadcasting, was probably bent upon on Mrs. Gandhi's instructions that every day in one part of the country or the other, there would be an inauguration of a low power transmit. So we had about nearly 900 transmitters by 1985. Mr. Gill, who used to call us for meetings once in 3 months, used to grill each of these persons what was the achievement, what is a lacuna, and then he would not budge on anything, no excuses. He was a terror, actually. He became, of course, the chief executive officer of the Prasar Bharati when it came into being in 1997. Virtually then, 6 months later, he was eased out by the BJP government through an ordinance. So I was coming to the history. So 1975 onwards, the programming side used to expand. That is, new stations used to come. Then in 1982, this national network came. In 1985, it was decided that every state capital should have a regional center producing programs in that particular language. Likewise, Trivandrum, Guwahati, and Ahmedabad. These were the ones which were to start in 1985.
When did you come to Trivandrum?
I
Station or you came later?
I came way back in 1984 October. I was asked by the Director General to move over to Trivandrum on tour, not posting, to find out whether we could start a television center in Trivandrum at the earliest, whatever date. But then Mr. Karunakaran, who was Chief Minister, was putting on enormous political pressure to start a TV center. And at that time, Mr. Gadgil, V.N. Gadgil, a very fine gentleman minister, was in charge of information and broadcast. So I was told by the Deputy DG then, Mr. Pandey, to go and meet Mr. Karunakaran first before I make any assessment. So I met him. I had earlier met him because every year, those days, the annual performance of state governments, they used to be given time on television and All India Radio. In Trivandrum, if you remember, there was a big controversy in All India Radio. So a television team, because Madras youth station used to cover Kerala, had come from Madras to record Mr. Karnagaran. And we had almost spent half a day together without any paraphernalia. And then he came to know me well at that time. And when I came and met him to assess the situation, he said, whatever you want within the purview of the state government, you will get it. But make sure, being a Malayali, you should be, answerable to the Malayalis, and started by 1st January 1985. You can call me anytime, you can come home anytime, tell me on phone, and it will be done. But I want the TV station. He had such a firm bent of mind. But the building was not ready, studios were not ready, and it was a Herculean task, because what we had was a condemned OB van. OB means outside broadcasting van, sent
Right.
from Jalandhar. It is a mini studio with all facilities for recording outside broadcast. Then the main building, Trivandrum main building, had a set erection hall. So I consulted the installation engineers and the station engineer, Mr. P.R.S. Pillai, P.R.S. Nair, and N.C. Pillai. So I said, this is what the chief minister told me. And there were also producers, seven of them, who were recruited through Bombay Doordarshan. They were on their payroll, plus some supporting staff. They were all
You were the director in Trivandrum, are you?
Yeah, only directorship came only much later. I came in October. That was the day on which Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated. And then a call came to me saying that we had camera equipment. You should record condolence messages from all political parties and send it through Indian Airlines consignment, those tapes. Then we did. The people who were already trained did a great job. And then Mr. Karnagaran's pressure. And then we decided that come what may, on 1st of January, we will start a television center in Japan. It was just 1 hour program. I was till I went back to Madras, I came several times from on tour, because after 15 days you don't get DA those days. So I went there, came back, and from Madras I did a lot of paid work for the station for Trivandrum. On December 10th, I was given posting orders, because there was a general list of transfers and postings. And then you are entitled for 7 days joining time, if you remember.
Yes.
Then I was called and said, no, you are not taking any joining time. Please go and take charge tomorrow. And then we had a hectic time to start the television studios in Trivandrum on 1st January. Mr. Karnagaran inaugurated it. It was great. At that time, we had only a 1 kilowatt transmitter, which would relay program up to, say, 25 kilometers. Then we had to have a 10 kilowatt transmitter, which will take the signals to 80 kilometers around. But even this 80 from Trivandrum was a misnomer, because it's undulating surface. So that was how Trivandrum started. Then it was only 1987 that we had a major full-fledged studio and a fairly well-staffed structure. Then I was here for another 2 years. In between, I got a promotion when the studio came. I was offered a posting in Bombay by Mr. Bhaskar Ghosh. Said, you move over to a big place, it will be good. But then I had some kind of a commitment to Trivandrum. Then I said, sir, I have some. Please give me some. So then Trivandrum started, and for 2 to 3 years, we got the prize for the best run studio, best run Kendra in the whole Doordarshan network. For 5 years, almost 5 years when I was director here, there was not even a single audit objection, which is
The matter of one second.
bureaucratic parlance.
But how was the tussle between Doordarshan and Akashvani? Was there any problems between the?
Since I never worked in Akashvani, of course, the initial days Akashvani was not very supportive, not because of the staff, but I believe the then Akashvani director wanted to be in charge of Doordarshan Kendra,
Okay.
which did not happen. And he was quite a senior person, about to retire. He issued an order because we didn't have enough audio tapes. He issued an order. The order was shown to me by my colleague, Superintendent Engineer Mr. R.R. Nitha, that no facilities should be extended on television.
But were you at the same location?
No.
Both?
Our place is Kodapanakunnu.
Even now, the present place.
Yeah, right from the beginning it was there.
Okay, how was the state control that you have seen? How has it evolved? It now struck me that during the emergency there was really no television, was it?
Emergency, there was no television in Trivandrum, but emergency, there was strict control. TPS, you would.
It was the test of state control. I remember that very well. How Sanjay Gandhi intervened in everything.
Oh, yes.
Gujral was thrown out and he became an ambassador in Moscow.
Yes.
He could not continue. So the state control controversy was there right from the beginning and it continues even today, isn't it?
Yes, because broadcasting is a central subject, and just because it requires, for running television center, you require water, you require electricity, you require transport. All infrastructural facilities are provided by the state government. I had an interesting instance in Chennai. When MGR was chief minister, there was an instance when the later chief minister, Ms. Jayalalitha, when South Indian Chamber of Films and Commerce celebrated 50 years, President of India had come and Jayalalitha had given the Kuttu Valakku for lighting the lamp to the president. Unfortunately, my camera team, while editing the sequence, because they were given only half an hour to condense the whole report, this Jayalalitha's sequence was cut out. Then after about a week, one of the Tamil Nadu ministers used to come to our studios, sit in our rooms, have coffee, chat with us and all that. And then my director, I was deputy director, and then my director was on leave. Then the information and public relations minister of Tamil Nadu said, MGR has decided to boycott television. So if your camera teams are planning to come for coverage, where they were, virtually begging for us for coverage, said, no, we don't want Doordarshan to come for any function. To add fuel to the fire, one of the camera teams in Chennai, which had gone to cover a function at Stella Maris College, was beaten up by the Tamil Nadu police. My camera teams said, no, we are...
All because of the Jayalalitha incident.
Just because of that.
Because normally chief ministers want television. Of course, MGR is different because he's always on the screen, so he is not particularly.
Yeah, he knows. So 1 week, and they said some chief engineer came and said, we are going to cut your electricity, we are going to cut your water supply, you can't run. And since Talaivar has gone against it. So I tried through his PS, in the Director of Information and Public Relations, to get an appointment to meet him. Nothing happened. Then Dr. Jagadishan, who runs KJ Hospital, which was famous at that time, even now, I had to go to his. I used to take my children there for any minor problem. Jagdishan was visibly uh, upset because I was not able to even to speak to him properly. Then he said, "What is happening?" Then I said, "This is what I'm facing." He said, "Don't worry, but don't tell anyone. I will fix up a meeting with தலைவர் for you." So 12 midnight. I'm sorry, we are going into a lot of
Detail.
detail. 12 midnight. A posse of police officers came to my flat in Indira Nagar and started calling the bell, long bell, midnight. 12:15 was the time. And when it was a central government quarters, when my wife peeped through the keyhole, she says a lot of policemen and was from, when I opened,
Just being arrested and taken to the chief minister. Okay.
yeah, so they came, they said, Talaivar has agreed to meet you at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then I said, I can't go because I don't get a car. I will have to get the office. Then they said, no, don't worry, we will take. But sharp 5:30, I reached this. It was always crowded. It is something to be seen, to be believed. Even when he came to TV studios for recording, there will be huge crowd around on the road. So
Well, something like Chandi.
yeah,
this not be seen alone.
Much bigger scale. If Umanjandi has 100%, MGR has 10,000%. Oh, wow. Whole compound was full of people. So I was ushered into his room in the morning, and then he said, "How could this happen?" I told him, "Sir, I can't speak Tamil. Forgive me." He said, "നമുക്ക് മലയാളത്തിൽ സംസാരിക്കാമല്ലോ. I need to." And that put me at ease, and I told him. Then he said, "No, this is not the way to show a report." Ammu, he used to call, I understood only that day. Ammu in a short, your people blacked out. So then then he said, "You go back, compensate that, we will do anything." And after that, he was so very fond of me. Any crowd, he used to meet me. Once I traveled with him in a helicopter to Vellore, where a local transmitter was. He was all hospitality, kindness, love, hugged me and said, "Anything you want, to call me." Such. So I'm telling how state governments can be very considerate.
A hindrance as well as support.
Support. So
right.
We were coming to that. So in Kerala, of course, Mr.
So let us fast forward now to the private television because we don't have much time.
Yeah. Then there was no everybody wanted their face to be on television. In fact, there are instances that I can recount in Trivandrum. Well, ministers used to call me and ask, "Has your team started?" After we had only 2 cameras to go outside and cover. I said, "Yes, they are on the way." So I can start. Like that, our ministers were very proud. Of course, Mr. Karunakaran used to watch the news every day if he is in Trivandrum till the last bite. And he used to call me the next day. Even he used to comment about the news readers. One day he asked me, "Where did you get this lady from? She doesn't know Malayalam. Throw her out." And then, of course, people were new. They used to get used to television trend. But next, I'm citing an instance. A lady was, of course, removed from the panel. After about a month, he called me up. "Hey, this has become a great nuisance. For my sake, you engage her for one day, and then if you find her useless, throw her out." That was the level at which ministers.
He had taken interest in that.
So it was a tough balancing act. 89, yes, I was moved out because we had a.
And you went over to Delhi.
Yeah, I went to Delhi.
When did the private television come and how did it challenge the Doordarshan?
1992, private television channels came, but there was a catch. private television channels. Actually, we had Star TV to begin with, 4 channels. They could only uplink. These signals have to go to satellite for television.
And they used to go to Moscow, link to Moscow somewhere.
You know, there were several satellites in the world by then. There was this Intelsat, American consortium satellite. There
But
was,
it started because of Reggie Mannon, I think. Because Moscow links.
yeah, we bought transponder in Ekran to start Asianet. Anyway, so I'm coming to. So they could not uplink the signals to the satellite from an Earth station. The TV signals must be uplinked to a satellite transponder.
So, but Doordarshan had that facility. So you had an advantage over private television.
Oh, definitely. Actually, a lot of things happened later. 1982. 1992, when this private channels came, which were beamed from Hong Kong for the Star TV network.
So how was the competition then? Did people move away or they stuck to?
Yeah, the competition was very stiff because right from day one, people were looking for something different from what the old grandmother Doordarshan used to offer.
How is it Doordarshan has survived all these years? Is only because of government support or quality-wise it has remained good?
Doordarshan's objective is to educate, inform, and entertain. So 1/3 of our programs was only entertaining, whereas these channels, like B channel for that matter, all the time it is entertainment. Then Star TV at that time, Star Plus came.
Were they broadcasting movies at that time?
Yes. Doordarshan was broadcasting movies on every Saturday, Sunday. Regional stations used to have a regional movie. The national network used to have a Hindi movie on Sunday, and also late night we used to telecast regional movies which had won national awards, film award. 1982 onwards, 92 onwards, the competition slowly started.
And the commercials came to Doordarshan also.
Yes, Doordarshan had earned considerable revenue, but then slowly the revenues used to slide. But that happened.
Earlier it was only a license fee. There was no other income.
No, there was no licensee was scrapped in 1985 when Rajiv Gandhi became prime minister. No license fee at all for radio and television. In fact, there is a justification for license fee even now because Doordarshan is funded by Parliament. Doordarshan's funds are voted by Parliament in the budget.
Yeah.
But BBC, which is the best public service broadcasting medium in the world, there is SS with every television set, and there is also a license fee. And that all that goes to the running of BBC. So they are able to maintain their autonomy, whereas we have no autonomy.
BBC still operates like that? BBC still operates with a license fee?
BBC still operates with the license fee, and they are able to withstand the pressures of the government. You would know better than I do. When Falkland War came, BBC did not toe the British government line. Right. And the Parliament tried their best, but probably at that time the Director General or Chairman of the BBC Trust did not succumb to any pressure. So there is still a case in India that it's a government medium. A government medium now is funded by the government, and if it is to have real autonomy, it should be funded by its own sources.
If we fast forward towards today, a lot of criticism that Americans are saying that India is a part democracy and there is a certain amount of censorship of the press and radio and television and all that. Yes. So how does it happen? How does it operate? I can understand Doordarshan, but private channels are private channels. They're on their own. Does censorship apply to them in any way?
Right. they are cross commercial organization. Some if you can earn 1 rupee, they will as extra revenue. They will go to any extent. The whole television industry is now in India estimated at about 78,000 crores, and out of that, the advertising revenue is roughly around 32 to 33,000 crores as of 2020-21.
But how do all these channels survive? I'm astonished that many channels carry on. They say, no, this will close tomorrow, day after tomorrow, but they still go on. They keep their advertisements. And who does that? Because if there is no viewership, why should anybody advertise on that particular channel?
People are running television channel just to be one influence peddlers. If you say you are a channel owner, and there are 900 plus licensed television channels operating in India. Out of that, around 450 are news channels. If you watch the news channels and if you compare it with Doordarshan, you know, it is always truth is always a casualty. Though everybody says, say in Malayalam, Nerode Nirbhayam.
Nirantara.
It is only Nerode. It is not Neri. Satyam is not there. And similarly, Chodikkanum Parayanum.
No, but
That doesn't
now there is a tendency for every public opinion or every political party to have its own channel.
Yeah.
Quite obvious that they will support that particular party.
Yeah.
That's also watched by people, though their credibility may be low. So how is it that there is so much of a market for such variety of television shows? This is something which has mystified me.
Oh, we know there is a longer conversation on television rating point.
Yes, that is now stopped.
It is based on that we give get advertisements. So for that is influence peddling, setting agenda for the nation, setting agenda for the state. That's the reason why all these private channels are operating. They incur huge losses. Look, Kerala, there are about 30 channels. About 15 are news channels. Out of that, only 3 or 4 are making real profit. Rest of them do not make any profit. They are supported by I don't know what kind of financial sources they are. Same
It's not entirely commercial.
Entirely commercial. You will not find a single public service program on any of the channels. Very once in a blue moon, maybe one channel might show something, and that too as part of their own agenda. And look at the debates that we have on the news channels in either Malayalam or English or Hindi. I don't watch much of Hindi. The anchor or person who controls the whole debate is always opinionated, and he or she is a know-all. Have you ever been invited to anchor a show on foreign policy? Whereas you are the best person available in the whole of this part of the country. No, they wouldn't call you. They will call 4 political parties.
I'll call me as a participant. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so the standard of debates, the standard of public service, which is supposed to be done by them, because every cable channel, private channel, is governed by the Cable Television Act, which came into being in 1995, according to which they are to operate by the broadcasting code, the advertising code, and also several other legal measures, crimes against children, crimes against women. All those rules are to be observed. Everybody signs the agreement, uh, deposits an amount as bank guarantee to the government to operate the channel. But in reality, nobody is even aware that there is a basic broadcasting code available to the broadcasters.
No, but compared to these private channels, how would you rate Doordarshan's performance now?
Now, because there has been a very bad history everywhere, in the case of a running of a if you fly an aeroplane, the pilot is the supreme commander, nobody else. In a newspaper, the editor is supreme, nobody else. Of course, in some certain newspapers, it is the advertising heads. But in television, in Doordarshan, on the programming side, that's the making of content, there has been hardly no recruitment for the last 20, 25 years. There is a cutting edge level of operational staff called production assistants, the assistant producers.
But they do hire, freelancers
You
to
know,
conduct.
every person working in Doordarshan has been trained either in Pune Film Institute or elsewhere. Now, of course, condensed courses. Look at the camera work of Doordarshan camera teams or the private channel. Most of them are unprofessional. Look, I don't want to go into too many technical details.
And it has a bureaucratic atmosphere there.
Yeah,
In a private channel, there may be two people, but here there will be at least six people doing the same things.
yes, the 21st
Hierarchy and all that.
The 21st century medium is run by 18th century revenue rules. That's the whole tragedy of Doordarshan all through.
But when will it improve?
I don't know. There must be a political will to improve. There must be a political will to grant real autonomy. All these people who were in opposition now ruling during 1977, during the days of the emergency, they cried hoarse, saying that, media are muzzled. But when they came to power, they, of course, for namesake, appointed a Varghese committee. Then Varghese committee gave a report, but that report was passed into a bill in 1990. And
there is a Prasar Bharati.
Till 1997, they kept it in cold storage. Governments changed, but nothing happened. And every government, every political party wants to control the others. All India Radio also, for that matter. They want part with the right to the power of information. And so it is not professionally run. Now, you won't believe Doordarshan is headed by people who are from the military, telecommunication service, and like that.
And the information service officers are also there.
Information service officers are okay, fine, but it is not so everywhere. They are in charge of news, but on the programming, that's a content. There is not even a single programming officer who has come from the ranks. They don't know the pulse of the audience, and therefore, Doordarshan's viewership share has gone down to less than 1%, and its market share has gone down to less than 0.5%. That's a sad state of affairs.
Well, but then do you need Doordarshan?
We need, because government has to have a mouthpiece.
No, the political parties have their own channels.
All of them have their own
public channel. Why do you want Doordarshan?
That's right.
Well, that is the. But overall, what do you think? What is the future of television in India?
Television has a major.
Now they are saying so much OTT and various other things. Social media has overtaken everything. So, is there a market for television in the future? Like you said, is there a market for printed word? Will there be books in the future? But somehow books have remained valuable. Libraries are still very important because you want to feel it, you have to smell it, etc., etc. So, is that the same way for television? Will it survive?
Television is still the most credible medium for news all over the world, even when OTT and other platforms, social media platforms, are available. For example,
are you sure? What you hear on television is one thing, but when you see it in print the next day in Manorama or Madhubhumi, you seem to attach more credibility to those reports because it is edited, it is background is given.
There is a check.
Doordarshan, I mean, the television is an instant kind of production, while newspapers are more systematic. So they may have their own color. But somehow what appears in print seems to be more credible than what is said on television. Is that true?
It is only partly true because television news has now switched on instead of reporting to views. And newspapers have
Those
gone.
are expressed by people who know nothing. That is the problem. When the channel, the presenters start talking about issues, then that is where the problem comes. They cannot even pronounce the correct name of a country.
Let me tell you one example. If there is an incident happening, basically television has to report it.
Yes.
But now what happens is it goes beyond reporting. It is speculation. That affects the credibility of news. And the next day, the newspaper does both reporting, speculation, and also analysis. So that's why, as an avaricious newspaper reader, a Malayali finds newspapers still credible. But all over the world, basic television is the most believed medium for news. There has been survey reports on various.
How about social media impact? Has
Yeah.
it affected television?
That's true. The Pew analysis report, which came out recently, they had analyzed the television and OTT all over the world, and it was beyond doubt established that people believe in television news, not social platform news.
No, like for example, YouTube, what we are doing, for example. It's a great opportunity for anyone to put out his views and ideas. And so that was not possible a few years ago.
Actually, it is also the technology of television that you use in YouTube or any social media platform. Basically, the pictures are connected. There was no connectivity of this sort some time back. Earlier decades, we couldn't even imagine like this. You and I talk, and it is seen by people all over.
Also preserved for
Yeah.
posterity. It's remarkable. It's an opportunity.
No,
but you still think that television will survive?
Broadcast television will definitely survive. When television came, newspapers were afraid because they thought that television is going to films or cinema. The halls seem to be getting empty. But no, every medium has its own place.
No, and particularly since COVID has come, people are having to somehow express their views, talk to some people. This has been a great blessing.
Yeah.
So the other opportunities are not there. And so it has become more important at this time.
Absolutely. You would recall as ambassador the downfall of Soviet Union, Tiananmen Square incident. All that came to the light of the world only because of television, broadcast television. There was no other medium at that time. So television still has. I'm talking about broadcast television, not about the OTT platforms or citizen platforms like YouTube or whatever. Broadcast television still has.
And finally, how has it affected performers, dancers, Kathakali artists, and various others who make a living by performing? And now that it's all been recorded and put in YouTube and on television and all that, have they suffered or have their prospects improved?
I think they will all adapt to the new technologies. Of course, they have suffered to some extent. But which private channel records a performer? Will a private channel show a Kathakali performance? No. Nobody.
Maybe 3 minutes. Maybe 3 minutes.
No, nobody. So, of course, they will adapt. I have no doubt about that because theater will come back.
Yes, that's true.
It will definitely come back. Every medium has.
A lot of them lost their jobs and they couldn't make a living, but it's still coming back.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Okay, very good. Why aren't you starting a channel yourself?
If you give me 100 crores, in 1 year's time, both of us can start a good Malayalam channel.
Is that the budget? I didn't realize.
Why Malayalam? We can have it in English also. Any channel.
I'll call you when I get that money.
Huge investments are required if you have to have a state-of-the-art channel. Now, the channels that we see here are run with very minimal investments. Therefore, the quality is not what it ought to be.
Because of the technology also, its investments are very high.
Yes.
You have to create reality and various other things. You have to catch up with others.
Yeah.
So, but still, new television channels survive and thrive. But obviously, because of the interested investors.
They have other sources of income. I can narrate quite a few of them who have source of income from other. It's only part of their income which is channeled into television, because television provides a platform for agenda setting and influence.
And then they're able to generate other revenues for other means.
Absolutely true. Because both of us have been bureaucrats, we wouldn't know that aspect.
Yeah, I wouldn't even want to be there. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kunhikrishnan. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Nice memories, but you still have a lot of working time, so you must contribute more.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a great pleasure talking and interacting with you.
Thank you very much for finding the time.
Thank you.